All right, joining me live now is Roger Corbett, a former Reserve Bank board member. Thank you very much for your time today. Obviously, I'm sure you've been thinking a lot this week. I might just start with the decision of the RBA. Did they have nowhere else to go other than a rate hike, or do you think this might have been a closer decision than some were saying?
Oh, no, I think they had a very clear decision to make, and their independence to make that decision is vital to the Australian ongoing economy. We are blessed with very capable people in the Reserve Bank and their board, and they've made the right decision without any shadow of doubt.
And as to the way forward, I know there's no end of sort of prognostications, and plenty of us with a mortgage are sort of wondering where to next. So on the one hand, inflation did ease in quite a few areas in the 3 months to December. So the trend was good, even if it was too high. On the other hand, it seems like we've got an economy that sort of hits capacity at relatively low growth. Are there more rate hikes to come in your view?
Well, unless the government pulls back, yes. Very clearly, aggregate demand is private and public. There's some very good information in these figures, and that is that private demand is growing. That's what you want to happen for the economy to improve and to grow. When that happens, it's absolutely vital, because there's only one pool, that government expenditure contracts, and it's not contracting. This is a very big spending government. The public service has dramatically increased, which is an enormous cost. They're spending vast money on renewables that some people have a view on. This is a big spending government. And you can't have a big spending government and a growing economy, because aggregate demand exceeds supply and interest rates have to go up. But interest rates don't stop government expenditure, they only stop private expenditure. So this is going to have a detrimental effect on our economy. This is really a sad time in Australian history, because we are the lucky country. We have some wonderful opportunities before us. We've got excellent exports of commodities which are underpinning our economy, but they won't last indefinitely, and government has got to be leading our economy for the future. At the present time, you could argue that the collective government is a drag on our economy.
All right, you've said a lot there, there's a lot to unpack. I want to touch on this private sector and public sector spending, because it's been so central. So Jim Chalmers has said the pickup was in private sector spending, the largest part of the increase, which is true. But the point I think you make there, and this is, a question, so interested in your thoughts, is that because public sector spending was already so high and not going lower, as soon as private sector spending recovered, it meant a lot of that was inflationary. Is that the issue here, that whilst it's private that increased most recently, it didn't have the space it normally has because of high government spending, public spending?
Well, when aggregate demand exceeds aggregate supply, you get inflation. And the only way you can control inflation is to control aggregate demand. And if the government is not curtailing its expenditure, the only thing the Reserve Bank can do is curtail private expenditure, which is detrimental to the economy.
And essentially what we're going to get is, as you say, less private sector spending. That's what a rate hike affects. It doesn't affect wages of public servants. It doesn't affect other payments. I guess the other element is, we've heard people say, well, the NDIS is up, defence spending is up, and that's true, but government is about making decisions. Aged care and childcare payments went up. Government-backed pay rises, if you like, and the government got credit for them, and a lot of people would say that's money well earned. But if you're going to do that, you've got to make other savings, otherwise spending goes up. That's the other reality, right? Because it's essentially 27% of GDP.
Tom, the most important thing is, in this country, is productivity under this government has been at an all-time low. We can't have a better standard of living and enjoy a growing prosperity if our productivity doesn't go up. It's fundamental. to the Australian economy, fundamental to our living standards, fundamental to our job security. And this government has now been in long enough to have had a difference in productivity, and they've failed to do so. And that is the root cause of the problems we're currently in.
How do you see the economic roundtable? Is it too early to say it's a failure? There are a lot of ideas put out there. Perhaps we'll see some in the next budget.
Compared to the Hawke-Keating similar activities, which I assume it was meant to emulate, it certainly hasn't done that, has it? And I can see no real impact other than what the government's going to do is that what they always do is tax the older people in the community. And of course, the family home and small family investments are what make up what people can hand on to their children. And so they're clearly, I understand the family home's not in capital gains, but any investments that they've got, that they've accumulated to help their children, they're not going to be able to pass that on. This government is a government that is not controlling expenditure. And that responsibility falls clear and square on the Treasurer.
Roger Corbett, appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.